So, I think there's much I can endorse in this report. It really puts a spotlight on the need to make London fairer, and it advocates many policies which I say no hesitation in supporting. But it is quite clear that unless we actually do something, we put at risk the future success of our city. London can and must be a fairer place for all its citizens. And I look forward to working at City Hall to achieve just that. Thank you very much indeed.
Is this a good time to be a child in London?
I think London is a great place for families, but the challenges are that not everyone has fair access to get a good school place, and we've seen that, the severe pressures we see on school places in London. Not everyone can get a nursery place or can get a childminder. We've seen a drop in childminders over the last few years by 13%. So that's a real challenge, as well as the issue of schools being by main roads and children breathing poor air. So there's lots of areas there where the mayor can have a real influence to make the city an even better place for families to be bringing up their children.
So, what do you do when you have that degree of demand and you haven't got the supply? How can you also make things fair?
I think the London plan is the key tool for the next Mayor of London to be able to plan for the growing population. But in that, it can't just be building more and more homes that they're desperately needed. You've got to have the infrastructure that supports that. Part of that is transport infrastructure, part of that is school places, health services, but also nurseries. And the Mayor does have huge powers in terms of the estate that the Mayor currently owns across London. We've seen too many properties being sold off to the highest bidder because that's kind of how it's set out in law. But ultimately, what that's resulted in is luxury flats going up in former police stations rather than actually seeing schools and nurseries and all the other things we need to see built. And so Liberal Democrats in the House of Lords at the moment are trying to amend the housing bill that's going through that would change, adding a new planning category so you could designate certain land as for social housing. So immediately you bring that value of land down, you immediately signal to developers, if you're going to build on this land, this is what we expect you to be building. And that suddenly makes building genuinely social, genuine council housing, as I call it, becomes much more affordable. And that's the sort of tools we need in order to meet the growing demands of London.
Impulse is for everyone just to sell, that's the market. So how are you going to manage or actually stop the housing market?
Well, it's impossible just to stop it. I mean, that's the market. But actually, by building 200,000 homes over 4 years, you will be building, it's double what the developers are doing at the moment. And, the hard truth is the private sector, the private developers are building at the rate they want because it's about their profit margins. And actually, I want to be building the homes we need in London, setting up my building company through City Hall, setting up my state-of-the-art training academy to train up the workforce because we haven't got enough people with the skills in construction that we need to really make sure we can have this massive home building revolution. It's an effort like we had for the Olympics to build the homes we need, and I think that will start to see a stabilisation of the market. And if you can bring institutional investors in to build private rented accommodation as well, that will really help to set the bar for private rented accommodation and again to stabilise the rent levels there. And I think that's the way that we're going to tackle it, not by some artificial measure, but by just building the homes and boosting supply.
You and in the middle of this were the Liberal Democrats. I mean, casting your mind back, and would you ever be able to work with them again, as you might have to as Mayor?
Well, as Mayor, your job is to work with parties of all colours. I have experience as I was Deputy Leader of Southwark Council negotiating with the Labour government to get serious money to rebuild our secondary schools and to rebuild 3 primary schools in the borough. As an Assembly member, passionate about London, I made the case to central government in 2013 when our budget for Transport for London was under threat. We weren't going to get the investment in infrastructure. I went to the Treasury, I spoke to Danny Alexander, I spoke to his officials to put the case why we needed to keep the money in London. And as a result of that, the money was secured. It was my lobbying that was more effective than, the current Mayor of London squabbling with the Chancellor.
Yes, how do you feel about Zach not being here today?
Well, I think it's rather disrespectful when you're launching a serious piece of work. It's not a political piece of work, but some things in it I don't agree with, the freedom pass being one. But actually, for us to have that dialogue, I think is very important. I met Victor and the team, a couple of months ago as well to talk about the work and early on as well, last year when it launched. I think this is exactly the sort of thing that needs to set the agenda for the next mayoralty. And I think it's a shame if he couldn't come, he could have sent someone else. We can't the number of invites we're getting, it's astonishing, I have to say. But if I can't go to something, 99% of the time someone goes in my place, and he could have sent someone else. Yeah, I think it's really important. I think one thing we've lost over the last 8 years is genuine engagement with different communities in London, whether it's the disabled community, whether it's BME Londoners, whether it's young people. And I think it's absolutely right to have someone, whether they're called a deputy mayor, whatever we decide that, but real champion at City Hall to make sure cross-cutting throughout all your policies, young people and their needs are being properly addressed. That is something I very much support. I also like some of the stuff in the report that's around work experience and opening that up to young people. There are real issues that often people get an apprenticeship or work placement because of someone they know, rather than actually being fair. So I want to bring in a brokerage scheme at City Hall around apprenticeships where we can match the opportunities there with the young people. So it's kind of not about who you know, it's about actually giving every young person the opportunity in London.